Hey guys, welcome back. So today we have some important information for you guys regarding a couple of bills that are being quickly moved through the House of Representatives. I have my good friend Erich Pratt from GOA on the stream with me today. But before we get started, I want to thank our friends over at Big Daddy Unlimited for helping to support this channel and making videos like this possible. Just for 99 cents, you can check them out for 1 month. They're also very strong supporters of GOA and very, very active in political circles, which is one of the many reasons I enjoy working with them. With all that being said, Erich, again, we meet and we have, I wish we could talk about the new rifle we picked up for our birthday or whatever, but it seems like we come together to talk about, the craziness going on in DC. So if you could kind of explain for the audience what happened a couple of days ago when you guys had kind of caught wind something was amiss in the House, and then where we find ourselves today with H.R.8 and H.R.1446.
Yeah, well, Pelosi and company is trying to rush legislation to the floor, bypassing the committee process, which is normally how things work. And they're trying to get this passed through the House as quickly as possible. And we're looking at two different bills, Tim. One is H.R.8, which passed last year in the House, although now obviously the anti-gun Democrats have a much slimmer margin. I'm thinking they probably still may have the votes to get this passed, but it's going to be a lot tighter. But what H.R.8 does is basically just makes it a crime to transfer, not just sell, but to transfer a gun to somebody else. Now, there are some limited exceptions to that, but, all those exceptions are basically where they're carving out little areas of freedom that they say we can have. And they're traps anyway, because like, for example, I've got a lot of married sons and daughters. So, under H.R.8, I would be able to, let's say, give a gun to my daughter, but not to her husband. So, they've got little things like that where they can get you. Or where I might be able to gift a gun to one of my sons. I couldn't legally say, hey, this summer I'm going to have you do a bunch of work around the house, painting this and that, and at the end, I'll exchange for, one of Dad's firearms. That would be a crime, doing that, even though I could technically gift it to him. Can't do it under those circumstances. So, and of course, probably the classic is, you got a buddy over, you've just been shooting, you're cleaning your guns, and you say, hey, look at this one, and you leave the room, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, who knows what. Now that transfer is no longer in your immediate presence. You've just committed a crime. So that's why I say there's all these little traps where they'll get you. And of course, ultimately, today's exceptions that they have are going to be tomorrow's loopholes, because you know how the left operates, right? I mean, they'll say, oh, sure, you can't give a gun to your son-in-law, but you can give a gun to your daughter. See that loophole? I mean, so they'll come up with these, they'll just push for even greater and expanded legislation, just like they are now. I mean, they started with dealers, and now look at all these loopholes that are out there because you have private individuals transferring firearms. It's the same plan that they do over and over and over again.
Right, and this is one of the traps that a lot of people fall into. Like some folks, I've already seen the comment section like, oh, this is just a big nothing. This is just, people fear-mongering and whatnot. Well, no, it's not. And there's no such thing as accepting gun control light. We have to fight back. No matter how insignificant you think these laws may be in your own personal opinion, they are not insignificant because it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. What Erich has just explained is incrementalism, and this is something I've been railing against for years. They're just going to take little bits and pieces of what they consider to be low-hanging fruit. And when you start talking about things like strengthening the background checks, basically doing away with private sales, in essence, the gun show loophole is what we're talking about right now. By doing away with that, that's just one more step, one more right loss, one more way that an otherwise legal gun owner can get jammed up. And it doesn't stop there. It's not like you can go to them and say, okay, we agree to, more intensive, background checks, whatever. And then it ends there. It never ends there. It's just an incentive for them to keep taking that next step. And over 50 years, next thing you know, everything's banned through incrementalism. Right. And the other thing is with this low-hanging fruit stuff, it looks to me, and Erich, correct me if I'm wrong, with H.R.8 and 1446, you're talking about what they're calling the gun show loophole. So they've effectively demonized private sales. And then we're talking about the system by which if NICS doesn't respond back in 3 days, and when you're purchasing a new firearm, then automatically that gun transfers to the owner. You don't have to wait for approval from NICS. They want to do away with that. So now it's on indefinite hold. You've paid your money, you've purchased your gun, and now they can just say no, and not even say no, just ignore you. And the gun never transfers. And then I don't even know what process would be set in place for you to get your gun transferred to you. And so these are not insignificant things, but these are also things that I think the anti-gun forces feel are tough issues for pro-gun forces to push back against, because who would push back against reasonable restrictions like just strengthening the background checks? That's all we're trying to do. It's for the children. Why would you want to transfer a gun to a criminal if they can't pass a background check? How can you defend that? And so it's that stuff that this looks like stuff targeted to make it hard for pro-gun forces to push back on politically without making themselves open to attack from the left. And so it's this is the dirtiest of dirty politics, if you ask me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They try to make it sound reasonable. But two things that we absolutely know will happen if H.R. 8 were to become law. God forbid. But if it becomes law, criminals will still get guns. Okay, I mean, let's not fool ourselves. Background checks do not stop bad guys from getting guns. They steal them. They have straw purchasers. They can use fake IDs, any one of a number of ways. But the second thing that we know that what will happen when this bill passes is if it becomes law, is that it's only going to affect law-abiding, and ultimately it's a registration system, because every gun sale will have to have a 4473 attached to it. So it will be very difficult to legally get firearms without having a 4473 attached to it. I mean, and we've heard the stories from dealers all around the country where ATF comes in and they make wholesale copies of these. And of course, when dealers go out of business, they can just transfer all those 4473s to somebody else, but ATF will tell them, no, you have to send it to us. Yep. I mean, all these different ways that ATF tries to get their hands on this. It was leaked under the Obama administration, ironically enough. When we were fighting this, they had a talking points memo on this, and they said the only way that universal background checks can actually work is if you have universal registration.
Yep.
And it's so painfully obvious. And so, for any gun owner, it might think, oh, well, how is this really a problem? This is a huge problem, because this is really the last piece for the left to be able to register every firearms owner. And that's probably the biggest threat that this bill poses.
Yeah, I think that, people really, really need to pay attention to that, because, as we all know, registration will end in confiscation. When you have the President of the United States out there promising that he is going to pass an assault weapons ban of some sort, the only way they can enforce that is if they know who has them.
Right.
And so that's why they need to pass something like H.R. 8 first. Now they know who has them. And now when they, try to push for their ban and confiscation, they know exactly what doors to knock on. And, there's no such thing, like I said, as insignificant gun control laws. They're all abhorrent. They're all an affront to the Constitution, right. And we need to fight back against them all. We can't just look at something like this and go, it's not that big of a deal. Stop the fear mongering. Let them strengthen background checks. No, we can't. And also, we've touched on this before, and I've seen this in the comments already. Our voices don't matter. Nothing's going to change. Eric, can you please just briefly speak to that? You're on the Hill. You work with these legislators. Does it not matter when their phone lines just get shut down with phone calls and their inboxes fill up with emails? Does it or does not that make a difference?
Oh, it absolutely makes a difference. And actually, that's really the exciting part of this is, even though, because we really haven't talked about this, even though it may pass in the House, I'm still very hopeful that we're going to be able to kill this in the Senate, and it's driving the left nuts. I mean, they're talking about, in fact, they're openly complaining about how the Senate is going to become Joe Biden's legislative graveyard. And the reason we have really one huge weapon still, and that's the legislative filibuster, which requires a 60-vote threshold before they can actually vote on the bill and pass it with a 51% vote.
Right.
They still have to get 60 votes in the Senate. And that's one thing that gun owners have been doing. I mean, here we are in March. Tim, I mean, because, you get our alerts and stuff, you see what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We have been, in January and February, we've been working hard at mobilizing the grassroots to get senators to stay on board in keeping that filibuster. It's obviously easier with Republicans now because they're in the minority. They have a vested interest in keeping the filibuster. The tough part is getting some Democrats to stay firm on that. And so far, we've been able to keep 2 or 3 that are rock solid, and they're not giving in. And believe me, it's not happening because we walk into their office and say, would you please support the filibuster? It's because we're mobilizing thousands and thousands of people in their state saying, write them, call them. They're hearing from their own voters and constituents. That makes a difference. The other thing that was a potential threat was kind of an end around the filibuster. It was using the budget process as a way to get around that and get legislation like gun control put on a budget bill.
Right.
And the reason is, and I'll just simplify this just because so we don't get into the weeds. With budget bills, because, government employees and the congressmen, they all want their paychecks, right? Yep. For that reason, the rules do not allow filibusters when you're dealing with budget bills. And the reason is so that these bills won't die. So they're just passed by 51%. But that opens a door where if they get around the rules, they could start putting anti-gun legislation, things like that, onto a budget bill.
Like a stimulus check.
Exactly, and just do it with a 51% vote. So we've been banging on these senators, getting their constituents to say, look, we want you to keep the filibuster, but also do not use the budget reconciliation process as an end around the filibuster. And again, so far, I mean, with all the phone calls and the emails that are coming in, they are staying firm. And that's one part of the strategy. The other part is, for those who are GOA members, we're ramping up right now with a postcard campaign. I mean, if you've ever seen Miracle on 34th Street, it's the idea. You remember that scene where the protagonist has all the mail being dumped on the judge's desk, all these letters from Santa, and he's kind of the judge is trying to look through all the mail. I mean, that's how I envision our postcards landing on senators' desks. We've had congressional offices tell us your postcards, GOA, your postcards killed XYZ gun control legislation. It has a tremendous impact. So yeah, answering your question, I mean, obviously we may not always move like a Dick Durbin or a Dianne Feinstein who are so committed in their cause. But the grassroots campaign is super, super important. I'll just mention one other thing. One thing that we've been doing on the inside, given that there were people like Bernie Sanders and others that were trying to use the budget process to make an end around the filibuster. Bernie, he wanted to get a $15 minimum wage. Well, that from our perspective, isn't a gun issue, but it is an issue because if they cave on that, then it's like knocking a hole in the dam. Now right. it would allow all kinds of other legislation to be put on the budget bill. So again, we went to pro-gun senators and we said, look, here's a list of pro-gun amendments. If they start coming with their agenda, anti-gun amendments or the $15 an hour minimum wage, whatever it is, you come at them with these pro-gun amendments. And so we gave them things like to permit the restoration of rights. If you've served your time and it was a white-collar offense, you should be able to get your gun rights back, or states that have semi-auto bans or defunding states that have red flag laws. And so we were prepping them. You be ready with these amendments to have an offensive strategy. Okay, you're going to come at us with, your amendments. You're going to have to choke on these amendments. And we were picking issues that probably could pass with a 51% majority or more. And so with all that, the grassroots, the senators on the inside having their pro-gun amendments, it was so gratifying to hear Dick Durbin, one of the leaders in the Senate, say, we're not going to allow Bernie to have his vote on his legislative issue. So right now, that's a dead, done deal. So the filibuster survives, the 60-vote threshold survives, and it's thanks to people who have been taking action. That's the way we're going to beat this. So please, I hope anybody who's listening, don't think, Erich sounds optimistic and Tim's pretty optimistic, so I can just sit back and relax. No, the reason why we can beat this is because we have the grassroots. The left doesn't have that. All they have is the media. And the media, I work right outside of the Beltway here in D.C., and the media is loud inside that Beltway. Our guys have to be louder. But if we are, that's how we can beat this.
And once in a previous stream, and we were talking about stuff that we faced in 2021 potentially, there are a lot of snarky comments people had made about, how's that filibuster going to work for you? It's so great that you guys are worried about a filibuster, like mocking it. And these are people that don't understand basic civics, apparently, because that is it's such a powerful tool in defending the onslaught of potential gun bans and gun laws and stuff like that that's coming for us. Like you said, it puts that 60-vote threshold out there just to even get it heard by the Senate. And so we can't allow it to go to a simple majority, because that's where Kamala Harris gets to break the ties when things go down party lines, which they almost always do when it comes to issues of gun control. And so we must, and folks watching, please keep up the pressure. Set a reminder in your calendar to send an email, or I love the postcard thing, because there's nothing more real than a phone line. Because I've had representatives have their assistants contact me to basically call off the dogs when I got angry at I think it was Representative Carmelo in Florida when he was pushing for the bump stock ban. His office actually called me to make me say something to my audience to stop the phone calls. When those phones are ringing off the hook, that is a real problem for them. When their desks are getting full of postcards, it's like, oh my gosh. It's tangible, it's real, and they realize people are upset. If they're taking the time to do this, they're serious. And so please keep up that pressure, folks. Yes, the filibuster is important. Yes, we still have all sorts of political tools available to us. And we don't need to be talking about crazy stuff out there right now. Let's focus on using the tools given to us by our founding fathers, because we weathered 8 years of an Obama administration who also promised all sorts of gun control. A lot of people have short memories. They go, Obama didn't take your guns away. It wasn't for a lack of trying. We stopped him cold every time, and there were some pretty big, nasty national tragedies that occurred that they tried to use to push that agenda for another assault weapons ban and stuff like that. But we, the people, showed up at our state capitals and we squashed it. And so, yes, it does work. Yes, your phone calls matter. Yes, your emails matter. Yes, showing up at rallies, it all matters. And so I just want to drive that home, because it's so disheartening to see people say they don't have a political voice. The election was stolen, so why should I even bother being politically involved? That completely wrong mindset. And I'm not making a comment whether or not the election was stolen or not. I'm just saying people are using it as an excuse to just do nothing. And through apathy is how we lose our rights. Through sitting back going, it's all a sham. Our votes don't matter. They don't care what we say. I'm just going to sit back and do nothing. That's how the 1994 assault weapons ban passed under Bill Clinton. Apathy. So, Erich, real quick, is 1446 still an issue? Because in your alert that you sent out, we talked about H.R.8 1446, the indefinite delay on transfers from NICS. Is that still an issue? And can you kind of elaborate on that real quick?
Absolutely. Yes, it's still an issue. Basically, As you said, it opens the door for indefinite delays on firearms purchases. As you know, right now, there's if FBI doesn't respond with a yes or no, after 3 days, the sale can go through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this bill would now up it to 10 days.
Okay.
And then at that point, there's then another 10-day period where you have to make an appeal to the FBI for to have them weigh in on this. But even after that 10-day period, FBI still doesn't have to respond, and there's no order in that bill. There's nothing that says the FBI then has to approve it. So you're still now in the situation. You've just gone from 3 days to now almost a month, where you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and still in the same situation where, quite frankly, a lot of dealers have been intimidated into not transferring that firearm, and there's nothing that closes that door to make sure the sale goes through. So if, as happened last year during the COVID year, we could, gun owners could find that, just FBI is not, especially a politically motivated FBI, let's say under a Biden administration, if they just decided, wholesale not to be answering, not to be giving determinations, that could result in people waiting weeks, if not months, certainly depending on the dealer. The dealer's decision not to make the sale go through. So, this is one of the things, we hear at Gun Owners of America from our members, that, FBI has no problem issuing delays without any particular grounds for doing so. And quite frankly, the FBI, a lot of times just ignores the law, because contesting a delay, for the gun owner to actually contest it, it's expensive, it's time consuming, and it's very complicated, and it might not be resolved for years. And so, the folks at the FBI, if they're so inclined, politically motivated, they could hold us over a barrel. So yeah, the indefinite delay potential with this bill is terrible.
So, we saw during the whole COVID thing and then lead up to the election, the gun stores are being absolutely slammed. And Copper Custom is a store that, I have an equity stake in, and I do all my transfers through there, and I swing by and say hi to fans and stuff when I'm in town. And one thing I noticed was during that time, the delays were a lot. I mean, obviously, we're having a record number of sales month after month after month throughout the entirety of 2020. And the FBI, it was almost like they were just so overwhelmed. They just said, you know what, we're just, not responding. So they would delay. And very few of those delays actually got that phone call back saying proceed. And so after the 3 days, the gun transfers. So if we find ourselves in a situation that, the panic buying of 2020 and now into 2021 hasn't subsided, it's if this passes, it sounds like there's no punishment for the FBI if they don't give a definitive decision through the next system. So they can drag their feet forever, basically never, and I'm asking a question, basically never say yes or no, and then at some point it becomes the discretion of the dealer whether or not they want to, go ahead and transfer it, but they might get in trouble with the ATF, because the ATF has a lot of power with gun stores. The ATF can come in and absolutely destroy a gun store's day. They can put them out of business very, very quickly just by doing an audit and, you didn't dot this I or cross this T on a 4473 form, and I'm not exaggerating. And then they start putting strikes on your license. Next thing you know, you lose it. So for gun dealers, if they're putting this in the lap of gun dealers later, that's going to, put a chilling effect, because gun dealers are going to try to stay in business. It's, is that where this is at?
Well, that's exactly the concern. And, as you know, we're in such a litigious society. Even for a lot of well-intentioned businesses, you can just see the attorneys saying, it's best that we just wait and not, wait to hear back on every sale from the FBI. I mean, that's what the Walmarts started doing
Yeah.
a long time ago. So, I mean, we've already seen that kind of thing happen. And you're right. I mean, ATF, has tremendous power. The argument for this whole bill came, they call it the Charleston loophole. And if you remember back a few years ago, that the killer that went into the Charleston church.
Yeah.
And, really, we need to turn it back on the left because, they say it's, he might have been a prohibited person, but the 3 days wasn't enough to find out that he had a drug arrest, yada, yada, yada. But, the real Charleston loophole is the fact that Americans are prohibited from carrying guns in certain places. And that's demonstrated by the fact that that killer there in Charleston actually wanted to attack a school. I think it was a university, but he scoped it out in advance and he was concerned about the armed security there, ding, ding, ding. So he chose a gun-free zone. That's the problem. That's where over 90% of the mass shootings occur in this country. It's in gun-free zones. And that's the thing, so when they're hitting us with the, we need to be, screening potential buyers. I mean, it's amazing how many mass killers passed background checks. I mean, even legitimately, that they had nothing in their record at all. Most of them, that's actually the case. So, thinking that background checks are going to stop that, it's ridiculous. I mean, ultimately, it's back to what we were saying before, Tim. This is all just part of the puzzle that they're putting together. It's part of the whole plan where they're establishing a registration system, and it's exactly like you said. You can't enforce gun bans if you don't know where the guns are. And so by identifying gun owners in advance, it will help implement future gun bans. And we need to keep our eye on that and realize that's ultimately what's happening here, and not get so caught in the weeds. I mean, I hope there's no gun owner out there that would be saying, what's the difference between 3 days and, the 10 days or 20 days? I can live with that. No. I mean, this is they're tightening the noose around our necks.
Yep. And sadly, there are people out there right now. They're going to comment later in this video or in Instagram posts and say this is just a big bag of nothing and not to worry about it. And it's unfortunate because we have to push back at every little thing that they attempt to do. Because as we talked about previously, I don't want to rehash it at the beginning of the broadcast. It's incrementalism, and the anti-gun forces are playing a long game. And we're playing a short game where we're constantly on the defense. And that's mostly due to our representatives. It's not due to gun owners themselves. We're a very vocal bunch. It's our representatives that typically align themselves with the Republican Party that are spineless and do nothing. And so we can't allow this incrementalism to go on because it's just, the old saying, death by 1,000 paper cuts. And over the span of 50 years, they have just stripped away nibble by nibble every little thing until they ultimately get their goal, which is, no matter what they say, is a complete ban on firearms. And so, and that'll leak out every once in a while. They'll slip up, somebody have a hot mic moment, and they'll mock themselves about, reasonable restrictions. Ha ha ha. What we want is a complete ban. So it's all smoke and mirrors when it comes from the anti-gun side. They try to, pin it on the subject of public safety and saving children and whatever else emotional heartstring they can tug on, when in reality they just have a political agenda of disarming America and doing what they will. So anyway, I think we've covered off on H.R.8 H.R.1446. How can people? I already know you guys have set up an action page over on GOA. How can people find this, and how can they get involved, and how can people start contacting their representatives to make their voices heard? GOA is a tremendous resource for helping people make that connection, because I get a lot of questions from my own audience, like, well, how do I contact my rep? And I'll Google it myself and give them the link to how to contact their reps, because there's public pages out there. But you guys make it super simple. How can folks do that using your resources?
Yeah, well, you've got the action link in the description.
I do.
So so when people follow that, they can take action to contact their representatives, and that's really important. They need to be hearing from us. And I would just make the appeal to folks, if they're not already getting our email alerts like you are, Tim, it's free. Go to our website at gunowners.org, sign up for our email alerts. That's how we are really combating and overcoming that loud media voice that I was talking about earlier, because quite frankly, the media doesn't reelect all 100 of these senators. It's the voters back in the states. And when they start hearing from enough of them, that makes a huge difference. So sign up for our email alerts. There's also membership options, but even just getting the information, it's free. We want to be able to help get you in contact with your representatives, with your senators. And Tim, as you were saying, we make it easy. We provide pre-written letters, and we tell people, you can edit the letters, to your heart's content. But at least, we've given you something to start with. I think I've told you this before. We found that if you give somebody some language to start with, it actually generates even more letters than if you just give somebody a blank slate and say, type in a message, because a lot of people are like, okay, how do I want to say this? So, you can just send it as is, or you can add some things, keep it polite and respectful. But that, those things make a huge, huge difference. So, thank you for putting that in the description, Tim. That makes it very easy for people to get connected.
Yep, and that's what we're hoping to do here, guys, is to make it as easy as possible for you guys to, get the information that you need. Like Eric was saying, the email alerts are free. If you're on Instagram a lot, follow them on Instagram, because they'll make posts quite often, and you'll see a lot of us in the gun community repost those posts. And like Eric said, in the video description of this live stream right now, there is an action link that for free you can go there and contact your representative. But I also urge you guys, join GOA. It's a small amount of money to donate. I do so every month. I think you guys call it the Patriot support. You can do a lifetime. You can do once a year, or you can do once a month. But it really goes to help. We're not putting fancy new suits on Eric. These guys are fighting in the trenches in DC, and they're one of the few true groups that actually have boots on the ground in DC that are interacting on a daily basis with these legislators. And that's absolutely critical that we support groups like GOA and their mission. So I made the pitch for you there, Eric. I don't get any kickbacks from GOA. I just want to make sure that people support a true gun rights group. And you and I have been friends for years, but I also know that you guys have a long, proud tradition of over 40 years of no compromise. You'll never see GOA on the Hill saying, well, we'll give you this little bit of gun control if you give us a little bit of that. You guys don't do that. Right. And people say, is that a sound strategy? It absolutely is, because we've given up far too much already. Shall not be infringed is pretty clear, and we have gross infringements on the books. There's no reason to add more. And being so closely tied to a gun dealer anyway, I already see how many of the laws that are on the books aren't even enforced. So if you're not enforcing the ones you already have on the books, why in the world are you looking to put new ones out there? It's just, we're just caught in this endless cycle of legislators thinking that they have to pass something and they have to do things, otherwise they're not effective. If you want to impress me as a legislator, undo bills, get rid of some of these laws that are on the books. But nobody ever seems to talk about that. Anyway, that's my little rant about politicians in general. All right, Eric, I know that you're super busy today. We're about a half hour in. Is there anything else that we need to convey with regards to H.R.8 and H.R.1446? We've already told folks how to take action. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the audience with before we tie things up and let you get back to doing what you guys do in D.C.?
Sure. I would just say be encouraged. These two bills will probably pass the House again. And I'm not saying that, don't take that, hear that, and think, okay, well, I'm not going to take action. That no, please do take action. But when it passes, I know it's going to be hard, because you're going to hear, the media and the congressmen, they're going to be patting themselves on the back. They're going to be gloating. And it can be kind of dispiriting when you hear that. but be encouraged, because it is, they may win that battle, but it's a long war.
And take it to the Senate.
War.
Contact your senators, because that's where we're going to kill it.
That's exactly right. And so far, we're winning that battle in the Senate, and and that's where we especially need to keep the heat. So I would just say, just be encouraged, because just prepare yourself for, when it passes in the one chamber, remember there's still another chamber. And so they've got a long haul, and they're already, by the way, they're already complaining about this, and that's something that should encourage us. They are really upset about of course, they weren't upset when Trump was president, right? And, things were dying in the Senate, and reciprocity died in the Senate. They didn't care about that. But now all of a sudden they're concerned about things dying in the Senate. Well, I tell you what, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So that's going to be where we're putting all our marbles. And so anyway, stay alert. Be on our alert list. And I would just, encourage people, and I'm sure, you'll tell them this, but to help the algorithms, like this video stream, to help get this out to more people, share it, because we need more people to see this, and really be educated on this. But Tim, I just want to say, I really also appreciate greatly your friendship and just hearing your support for us. I mean, that means the world to us. It really does.
Well, thank you, man.
Because we know you're so hardcore and no compromise. And so to have your support.
Well, it's good to have a group out there that aligns with me. And believe it or not, there are a lot of folks in the gun community that think the way that we do. The old FUD of yesteryear is becoming a bit of a dinosaur. They're not so much prevalent in our community anymore. It's inspiring to me to see the younger generation coming up and being staunchly pro 2A and not accepting any type of compromise. And that warms my heart. And I hope that they, align themselves with groups like you, because it's important that we have that presence in DC that we can't personally have ourselves. All right, guys. So yes, if you would, to other content creators that are out there, if you want to use bits and pieces of this video, please feel free to take it and use it in your own videos that you want to create for your audiences. It's more important that we get this message out there to everybody. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. Pass this link around, let people know what's going on with H.R.8 H.R.1446, and help us get our base motivated so we can squash this thing in the Senate and move on to the next battle. All right, guys. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to help bring some information to the audience, and so we can get some folks moving. And it should be very encouraging news for you guys that right now we do have the hopefully the advantage in the Senate, and we can stop this stuff. So don't get discouraged. Be politically active. It does matter. And Eric, my friend, I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much again, everybody. We're going to sign off now. And if you have any questions, I'll try to stick around a little bit later and answer questions you might have in the comments section down below once this video goes live. And again, please share this video so everybody is aware of what's going on. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.